Welcome, everybody, to Let's Talk Computer Science, a podcast dedicated to talking about the past, present, and future of computer science. This podcast is made possible by our friends at Rex K12. Be sure to check out their amazing CS platform, including courses on cybersecurity, app development, and AI. That's right. They changed their name too. For those of you that have been listening to the previous versions, it's now Rex K12. So get that in your notes. If you don't have a CS teacher, that's not a problem. Rex is now providing instructors as part of their platform, virtual instructors. So be sure to check them out at rexk12.com. And today, I'm excited to have on the show Holly Landez. She and I go way back. She's the director of digital learning and innovation, a great title. That was my title way long ago at Eanes, right up the road from me here at Copperas Cove ISD in Texas. Holly, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
So before we get into your origin story and what brought you back, tell me what a director of digital learning and innovation does these days. Because I know what I did, and it was everything under the sun. It seemed like with technology.
That's right. Well, this is an incredible role. I've been in this role about a year and a half, and I get to know a little bit about a lot of things. So, a big part of our job is to just make sure that all of our students and teachers and staff have access to all of their learning applications, and that's a big job. We've got an enrollment of about 8,000 kids, so that's ongoing.
Nice.
And then also, we support our librarians, so we support STEM initiatives and makerspace activities. So our librarians, ever since we've gone one-to-one, have been doing a lot of device support on their campuses, and so we support them in that area. But also, with just activities in their library, they also do a big support of our digital citizenship initiative, and so we also do professional learning on all topics, digital learning, and so that could be application specific or how one digital learning tool might fit in a particular curriculum area. And every day there's something new that we're having to support.
Yeah. It's a job that keeps you on your toes, as it is. Yeah, and I don't think you ever have a time to sleep if that's with all the things that you're having to do in that role. And of course, technology throws a lot of stuff our way. Well, speaking of technology, let's go back in time a little bit. I'd like to know, kind of give me a little bit of your origin story, like what kind of led you to this role, but then also was there a moment along the way, whether it was as a student or as maybe as a teacher, where there's like an aha moment with technology in general, where you're like, wow, this for educational uses may have something here.
Oh, yes, it's a long story, so I'll try not to keep it too long, but there is a little bit of irony in the fact that my role now in a job that I love is digital learning because as a student in junior high school at an American school in Germany, I was enrolled in a computer science course and I got in the class a little bit late, so I didn't have a really good idea of what we were doing. I didn't understand what the programming was. Plus there was all boys in the class, and so I was really turned off,
Typical.
horribly,
Yeah.
horribly intimidated for years until I was in college, and my mother became a campus tech. She was one of the first generations of campus techs in Killeen, and so they were campus instructional techs, and so they got to teach teachers how to use technology, and so she really enjoyed that, and so she gifted to me her first computer when I went off to college, and I was a Mac LC2, and I loved it.
There we
And
go. I was going to ask you what it was. I could see it in my head.
yeah,
Those we now use those as like aquariums or something, but they still work. They're in museums.
yes, I loved that thing. I was an RA, so I printed off on a little style writer. I would print off signs for the hallway,
Oh,
and so I
yes.
thought I was big time. And then and then I became a computer lab aide. I've worked for Killeen ISD for 27 years. Started there in 1993, and I was a computer lab aide, and we had a lab full of Apple LC2s, and sorry, L2 Apple
Yeah,
IIe's.
L2Es.
A lot of Oregon
Yeah,
Trail,
Apple IIes,
a
yeah.
lot of Oregon Trail and number munchers going on there. But I I was inspired.
You have died of dysentery,
Yes,
yes.
yes, number munchers and, kid picks, and so, it was my job
Oh,
to
classics.
help teachers, find ways to connect that, but it was always really we tried to connect it to learning, but we just weren't there yet with, the
Right.
technology and instruction would go hand in hand, so it was a lot of just sit and go and practice multiplication kind of things, but even then, I was inspired by my mom's working goals as an instructional tech. even then, that long ago, we were talking about how can we use technology beyond just drill and practice? How can we use it for creativity? And so, if I think too hard about it, coming forward, I've been trying to send the same message to teachers the
Yeah.
whole time. And so I choose not to be discouraged by that, because when I look back, I think, wow, we've come so far, right? So,
Right.
after I was a lab aide for 3 years, then I became a classroom teacher. I taught 4th grade for 7 years, and, that's when we were first getting, mobile lab carts, and we had one wireless radio that we would take with the mobile cart, and we had some.
Oh, the little like airport
Yes,
thing.
yes,
Yeah.
and we had some, white iBooks, and we thought we were in heaven. Of
Mm.
course, we had 2 carts for the entire school, so my friend and I were always fighting over the cart, and kids did PowerPoint presentations, that sort of thing, but it was so much fun. And then I had an opportunity to become a campus tech, and I did that job for 10 years. And it started out really as an instructional role, but then as years gone by, years passed, and we had so many devices in the campuses. We got printers, and we had Palm Pilots for assessments. We had
Projectors and
projectors,
yeah.
document campers, iPads. It was less of an instructional role. They even changed the title, and it became more about just supporting hardware. And so,
Mm.
then I had the opportunity to join two of my very good friends, um, Anna Adam and Helen Mowers. Helen was our director of technology, and my friend Anna was a district instructional technologist, and we were called digital learning specialists then. And so I got to work with them, and they taught me so many amazing things.
They are amazing.
Amazing.
Those 2 ladies, I learned a ton from them too, man. They were, their title, they called themselves was it the Tech
Tech
Twins or the Tech
chicks,
Divas? Something I can't
tech
remember what
chicks,
it was.
tech chicks.
The Tech
They're,
Tech Chips
yes,
Chicks. Yeah, I can't say. Yeah. That was yeah, I learned a lot from them too. I didn't know I guess I did piece together. I think that's where I met you I was in
yes,
Killeen,
yes.
right? Yeah, all 3 of you were working together. What a powerhouse. I mean, to have all of you in that under the same roof, just all the amazing things you guys were creating down
That
there. What about let me ask you just real quick as I know you're still kind of
start.
getting to where you are here in Copperas Cove, but along that road, no, that's okay. Along that road, you mentioned kind of like, that there's integrating technology is a lot different. You go from, dealing with hardware all the time and then saying, okay, can we actually do this? Not just fixing things, but that is important still. It's part of the role is to make sure the technology works. What were some of the struggles? Are there struggles that you saw back then when you first started out that you still see now? I mean, obviously the technology is completely different and changed in a lot of ways, but what about the struggles of the teacher themselves, like integrating? What are some common threads there?
I absolutely positively see barriers that I've seen that have been going on for about 20 years. The biggest one is time. So teachers have the opportunity to use all of these really cool things. I'm able to share with them new features and applications, new features and devices, and new ways that they can integrate it with their curriculum. It's always been that way. But there's time is an issue because they feel like they have to take the time to learn it. Well, one way to overcome that, take the time to learn it, is to put the onus on the kids. If you encourage teachers that they don't
Mm,
have to know it all, they don't have to know the ins and out of every application, they don't have to know the ins and outs of every um, hardware tool, if they can just try it. But time is an issue there, and the learning curve. And then also sometimes there's a little bit of fear, and it's not necessarily always the veteran teachers that are fearful.
right.
So some people are fearful to try something new, and a lot of that fear comes in because they have some really stringent requirements. We've got the state assessment to worry about, and how can we get
Yes.
this to fit in? And so I'm always looking for those little inroads about where can we fit in some creativity, some creative activities. And so mainly what I'm finding here, we have a pretty rigid scope and sequence. They have to follow a really specific scope and sequence. And so science and social studies are my inroads to, where kids can have a chance to be more creative and where teachers feel a little bit more flexibility. But definitely time and fear, and just the ability, the willingness to try something new.
Yeah, and that connection, I mean, I think you make it by I like that you identify kind of an inroad with your science and social studies department saying, okay, if I can get in here, what ends up happening is that, the kind of the fire spreads, so to speak, because then other staff are like, oh, hey, wait, what's that you're working on over there? Maybe I can hear a little bit more, because it's one thing for us to come in and we're kind of the tech gurus, right? We come in, we have all this time and exciting ideas that we want to share. But if you get those one or two on board and all of a sudden, like, wait, that teacher's using it, that's amazing. Let me see what I can do. And I think that also helps in a lot of ways. In your current role, as director of digital learning and innovation there at Copperas Cove, what are you seeing in terms of like what are some initiatives that you're working on right now? Like the lay of the land here. This is September of 2023 when we're recording this, and of course AI. We'll talk about that in a minute, but like what are some things you've been working on the last couple of years that you're excited about, or things that are coming on the road for you, like around computer science or ed tech in general?
Specifically, Copperas Cove ISD, we're in a fifth year of a Department of Defense grant. So Copperas Cove sits right next to Fort Cavazos, which was Fort Hood for many decades. We just changed as Fort Cavazos, but we support a large military population, and so this coding grant that we have, we're on the fifth year of a $750,000
Wow,
Department of Defense grant.
great.
And so the main goal of that grant was to increase coding instruction and how to align coding instruction with the curriculum for our junior high. So it was for sixth, seventh, and eighth to increase math achievement. And so then they started that grant, and then COVID
Oh, right in the
happened.
middle.
And so yes, so when I came, it was already going to be the third year of the grant, and there was a ton of money left, and we had this very small population that we could serve with all of these funds, and so they were doing great things here, even before COVID happened and before I got here. They purchased a wonderful coding subscription for kids that would support sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, that had lessons built out, and they were using it in a lot of courses. So they used it in foundations of IT. They used it in we had a little web
Nice.
design class at one of the junior highs, and so they were able to do coding clubs and things for our junior high. But that was a really small population, and so something we were able to do is expand that grant to include our third, fourth, and fifth grade. And so what that enabled us to do was to start some elementary robotics clubs. And
Nice.
yes, and so that was fun. And I'll tell you what, I was a little fearful because I didn't personally have a ton of experience with
Neither do I. Yeah.
robotics. I had exactly zero experience. And so, but luckily they already had some teachers here that they were interested in that. And so I was able to help them get some supplies, and we had they just really jumped on board, and it wasn't a huge amount of club. We ended up with so we have six elementaries, and we probably had about not quite 70 kids. But in May we had this showcase where every campus came with their kids, and we did a little challenge. They used those they
Oh,
had
okay.
Lego kits, and they did a hopper, and so we had a hopper race. They build the with the Legos, and they build like a little frog, right? And so they race their frogs, and I was so impressed with the students and the club sponsors because I didn't even realize what a great job they were doing. Right? I was fearful. I said, "Oh, we don't know how to do this," and but the kids are amazing. They just if if we can find something that they're passionate about, and these kids were passionate about their robotics clubs, they can do amazing things.
Yeah, and on
I
that
was so
note, I
impressed
do
with
you
them.
so I mean, having the club, I think is a great way to get it started. Do you think do you see in your future, like there at the district, maybe where some of this can be more integrated? I mean, obviously robotics is a tricky one, but there may be a handful of kids, like you said, that have a passion for that, and this could be a different way for them to express something. I mean, maybe instead of creating a paper, they have some sort of robotic demonstration or something to for whatever topic. Do you see that as a possibility down the road? Or funding's still an issue, I guess, in some ways, but that does give them that exposure.
Yes, and so thank you for that question, because another part of that is we were able to get a couple of librarians that were robotics club sponsors. And so they have the supplies in the library. And so even so going beyond those elementary robotics clubs, they have the things there for checkout. If a teacher's willing to do that, willing to have a teacher, a student participate in that way, and if they can find a way to align, because some of these supplies, they come with curriculum, and so we can align those in some ways, to what they're already learning. And so I have a little group of teachers that I'm working with that I'm so excited, because I just started with them this year, and my hope is that they're going to find a way to align some of these things. We have these cool applications, we have these cool robotic supplies, but when can we fit them in so that they don't sit unused and sit on the shelf? And so you mentioned it earlier about
Right.
finding those one or two people
The
that are
vanguard teachers,
go-getters
yeah.
and interested. And so yes, and so I have this group, and that we call them the digital learning leaders. And my group is focused on two different focuses: blended learning and STEM instruction, because those are two district goals that I am tasked with supporting. And I have this amazing group of teachers. I have about 13. And so they're coming to learn all about blended learning, and they're learning about engineering design process and ways to support creative STEM activities. And then they're going to take that knowledge on, and they're going to design what they want to do and take it to their campus and provide PD to their colleagues. Another part of that is finding those things that are aligned within the curriculum. Because I understand, sometimes we can
Sure.
only
To
do
start.
clubs
Yeah.
or summer camps, after school activities, but if we're going to make it available for more students, it's got to be integrated in the curriculum. And that's another common thread that I've seen throughout this role, is that they give I don't know how to say it. They know, our leaders know that blended learning and STEM and creativity is important, but then sometimes getting that integrated, even though it's in our
Sure.
technology application standards, getting it integrated into what the teachers are required to teach, it
Right.
doesn't always align. So there's some kinds of
Yeah, and I
disconnect
and I felt
that
in
I'm
some
trying
ways
to
that
overcome.
I was fighting the same battle as you, Holly, and and I felt like it's like, okay, this is always, we'll do all of our stuff, and then we'll do the tech stuff over here, like on after the state testing is done, or on
Mhm,
Friday afternoons or something.
mhm.
And then I thought, well, the pandemic, that'll surely be the thing that brings everybody kind of up to the blended. But then we got back from that, and it was like, well, now we're gonna go back to the old. So now there's this new thing, AI. So we'll bring this up as our final topic, and let's talk about it. So AI, I feel like in some ways may actually have more of an impact than any of the other things that we've had, that you and I have experienced during our careers, because it's now, the teachers are going to have to start thinking differently about how they teach, and what they teach, and how they assess and evaluate student learning, if students are allowed to use it. Even if they're not allowed to use it, you and I know that students will sometimes have access to things when they're not in our school building. So what's the overall landscape of AI there in Copperas Cove right now? What do you think, kind of your outlook in general, but then also how is the school district kind of handling slash managing it?
Oh, I love the opportunity to talk about this, because just a couple of weeks ago, one of our local news stations, they reached out to every area school district and asked if ChatGPT was going to be blocked in their district. And our approach currently is that it's not going to be blocked, but we want to take a more hopeful approach. And I my wonderful
Yeah,
Dr. Monica
shout out to
Burns made
Monica.
this wonderful pamphlet. She's amazing, and she made this wonderful pamphlet about how teachers can use AI tools to increase their productivity. And so that's the approach that we're taking here. And so even before we were asked to do that news interview, one of my coordinators had already planned. After we went to TCEA, she got so jazzed about AI and how teachers can use it. She already had a PD session designed. And so she was so excited about all of the possibilities, because it's so far beyond just
Right.
Chat GPT, right? It's so far beyond the possibilities of kids. cheating. It's so much more than that, and that's what I'm trying to express. When we had that interview, and when I talk to teachers, that we can't be fearful of every new thing. Yes, it has the potential to cause some damage, but I choose to be more hopeful and look at the ways that we can use it to increase productivity. And another thing is, anything with AI, if we're talking about specifically Chat GPT, that's going to support our digital citizenship instruction, because we've got to talk to kids about using this critically, thinking critically, because yes, you can get a full essay
Sure.
from Chat GPT, but is it in your student voice? Does it express specifically what you're trying to say? And so you've got to look at it. You got to look at it real critically, and it's everywhere. So, like in the slides,
Yeah.
you can get Magic
Oh
AI,
yeah.
and we'll create slides for you. Does it really have that content that you need? It's good inspiration, but you
It's
can't
a
just take it all. It's
Yeah,
not
it's a
what you
rough
need.
draft. I mean, I'm almost done writing a whole
Yeah.
book on AI right now, so I'm deep in the throes of this. But and it's funny because everybody I've talked to about it says when I tell them that, they go, "Oh, you're probably using AI to help you write the book." I was like, "Well, it's not really that great." I mean, it doesn't, like you were just saying, it doesn't really say it in my voice. I've written, this is my eighth book, so for me, I know my style and my writing and my language. What I do, AI is great at doing some brainstorming, and it's great at doing some rough drafts, and I think those are things that we want our kids to have skills too. So I think, yeah, you're right. I think it's great that you have that kind of hopeful approach, and you're kind of, let's lean into it and see like what are the possibilities for these kids, because I think shutting them down or blocking it out, it really just robs them of the, because it's going to be used in the future, and it already is being used in multiple different job fields besides just education. So I thank you for sharing that. I also want to point out one more thing before we get out the door, and that is well, two. One is Monica Burns, amazing. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. We'll make sure we have that. I quote her a couple times in my book as well. And then also, I would like to know, like, where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing? Are you on socials? Are you on X/Twitter/ whatever it is? I mean, give us your handles.
Okay, I am on Twitter as at HLandez. I'll send you my Facebook. I don't know it in my head, and and I do have um, a portfolio that I used when I was working on my master's
Yeah,
degree, hollytech.org, and so I have some of my work there about including STEM in library commons, and so that's where I can be reached. And can I just add one more
sure.
thing? Because we didn't actually talk about that much about computer science here
We
at
can,
Copperas Cove ISD. I realized I
yeah.
realized I
Throw it
went
in.
on. Um, but I am excited about a shift that we've made here in Cove, that because we were able to increase some of our computer science instruction, we aligned it at the two junior highs, so that going into high school, our students now have the ability, more students have the ability to take the computer science too, so that they're able to earn those industry based
Yes,
certification.
that's
So we
massive.
had a little bit of a misalignment, so we're increasing those opportunities for them.
I love that.
And I was I was so shocked when I should have known this, but I was shocked when I learned that computer science counts as a foreign language here in Texas for their foreign language
That took a
credit. I
long
think that's
time. That fight has been on for a decade, and I think they finally. I want to say 21, or maybe either 2021 or 2019 that they did it here in Texas. And those of you that aren't in Texas, you're like, what are we talking about? But I know there are other states. I think Massachusetts, Illinois, New York, and California come to mind that are doing similar things where you can use it as a secondary track for a foreign language, which I mean, it is a language. I mean, coding is a language. I mean, we talk about it all the time. And so I always joke that, we have these dual language schools for Spanish and English. Like, you should do one that's, coding in English and see, who knows what the kids will come up with. But maybe Rex K12 can sponsor said school. You hear that, Rex? Okay. Well, Holly, I thank you for sharing all that. Yeah, I think that's great to mention that alignment. I think that's important too for those school leaders out there that are listening. I mean, look at your own curriculums and think about, where are we going? What's the pathways? When do the students have opportunity to be exposed to robotics? Is it middle school, junior high, or backing up a little bit? It's like you were sharing, starting in those third, fourth, and fifth grade levels, because that could give them some inspiration down the road to really go all the way to CS2 and get those certifications you talked about. So I think that's so important and valuable. And I also want to point out one more thing before we head out the door, and that is, you mentioned a lot of things. You never actually said, I did these things. You shared a lot about teachers doing it, students doing it, the work you did, your colleagues. And I appreciate that leadership style. I think that's such an important thing that you share that kind of leadership. And it's you model it every day, Holly. So I appreciate you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. That means so much. I appreciate this opportunity. Hope I'll get to do it again sometime.
All right, awesome. Thank you to
Okay.
Holly for being a part of the Let's Talk Computer Science podcast. And thanks to our friends at Rex K12 for making this podcast possible. Be sure to check out their platform at rexk12.com. Of course, we all know that technology will be a part of our future. And as educators and leaders, it's our role to make sure that all students, and that means all students, have an opportunity in that future as well. This is Carl Hooker signing off.